Welcome back to episode 11 of the WPD podcast. We've got a bit of a heavy hitter, serious one today. So first off, Sara, would you like to introduce the lovely sat to your right?
So on this podcast today, we've got Alita Norman, who is my partner of almost 7 years, and she has been in coaching for a long, long time. She's coached multiple levels, multiple sports, and I'm going to say she's very good at it, but I'm going to be biased. So, Lyts, you want to sort of tell us a bit about who you are, what you've done, your experience with coaching and stuff like that?
God, so it is far and long. So I've been coaching for 10 years, I think it is. Football, hockey, athletics, rugby, like everything. Got a degree in sports coaching, masters in that. So like nutrition, biomechanics, analysis, coach from men's, women's, youth, disabled, abled, everything under the sun, to be fair. Currently, JPL squad and a National League futsal player. So I do play now and again.
Yeah, she used to play, but you used to.
She's got the smarts.
What's that?
She's got the smarts.
Got the smart.
All the smarts.
No, I'm the idiot who stands in between the sticks and gets the ball kicked at them.
Yeah, so she's a keeper. Oh, in many ways. But yeah, so
the aim of today's episode is we're going to get a little bit heavy, a little bit gritty, and Sara and I are going to talk about some of the stuff we've had to work through during growing up and life, and how training has kind of helped us from that. Some of the stuff we talk about might be a bit heavy going for some people. Obviously, no offense if you want to switch off at that point. Equally, if after this episode you feel that, you know, it's touched a nerve or you just want to chat, you can always reach out to us individually or on the WPD page. We all check it sporadically. Yeah. So yeah, if you do feel the need to like, actually, I can really relate to that, we'd welcome the reach out. Feel free.
Yeah, that's it. The WPD girls, we always have our like an open door policy, I guess you could say, where, you know, if you do struggle or, you know, find anything that's triggered you on this podcast, then just message us. Like, we all have access to the page, so don't hesitate to give us a message. And the main reason why we've got Lyts on this podcast is just purely because she's obviously worked with many ages, both male and female, all sports, so and all levels of sports, so and also played at high levels, so she kind of has a good amount of mental health or how to approach an athlete's mental side of like psychological state of mind through all sports. So it's kind of good to have, obviously I'm a coach, Romana, you've been in the sport for a long time, Lyts is a coach for 10 years, so to have a different point of view for not only our point of view, but a coach who's been in the industry for a long, long time in multiple sports, it's good to have a point of view from her as well. So that's the main reason why we've kind of got Lyts on. But yeah, again, open door policy, anything that you find if she's triggered you or anything, just give us a message on the WPD page.
Sorry, I've had to pick her up. She was chewing her foot and I didn't know if that was picking up in the background, but it was really distracting for me.
Just in the background.
Quiet voice. So where do we begin to start off with? I think both Sara and I have had our little chats about our previous mental health kind of trials and tribulations. I think is probably the best way of putting it. Were you wondering what that noise was?
Yeah.
It's the fly zapper in the background.
Yeah, I see it. I thought that was Dan's just strobe lighting for when he goes clubbing.
Yeah.
But yeah. So,
who's starting? Where are we going from?
Do you want me to start?
Go on then.
Because I think it's just not an easy one, but it started.
Band-aid off on this bad boy.
I guess, yeah. So like I've always been sporty. Obviously, we've heard about our backgrounds and stuff like that, and I've obviously spoken a lot about it on other podcasts. But so I've always been sporty. It's always been a big part of my life. But then when I turned 9 or 10, my mum died of a brain hemorrhage, so it was very sudden death. And unfortunately, I was the one to find her. She sort of collapsed outside in my garden. And this was on Boxing Day, so we had a lovely day on Christmas Day, and then obviously Boxing Day came along, and she had a brain hemorrhage, and then that was it. Unfortunately, if anyone knows anything about brain hemorrhages, they just go. So there was no way we could save her. And we sort of had to sort of ring the ambulance and stuff like that. So that was a bit of a pushback when I was 10 years old. Obviously, I was very young, so didn't quite understand what was going on at the time. I just kind of I just knew that mum wasn't there. Necessarily didn't know whether she was coming back or not, but like at the time, it just happened. It was a state of shock for a long, long time. So as time moved on, it kind of came to to light that mum wasn't coming back. It took me a long time to understand that she wasn't coming back. But obviously when you're young, she's like, mum will come back. She's just gone. You don't really know why she's gone. She's just gone. And then it kind of, time moved on. We kind of got, she went to obviously have an autopsy, and that's when they found out it was a brain hemorrhage. You've always got like something that probably a lot of people can relate to sudden death experiences, like with family members, is we always thought that my mum knew something was going to happen, but she would never say anything. Like, it's these weird moments in your mind that like a few days before, my mum always loved the song Queen, Who Wants to Live Forever. And a few days before she said, oh, I'd love to have that played at my funeral. So it's kind of like she probably knew something was going on, but these are questions that are never going to be answered, right? It's a bit of a weird one.
There is a type of, an arterial venous malformation that people, if they are scanned, may know about, and that they sort of, it can be what they describe as like a ticking time bomb. But again, you'd have to have something to result in needing a scan to know that you had that. But yeah, if it's just a rupture.
Yeah, it was strange.
Sorry?
I mean, it was strange. There was always, I was so young at the time. Like, there was something that mum had for a long time, because I remember her being in and out of hospital. But I can't for the life of me remember what it was, because I was so young. And she was quite unwell for a long time. And then, yeah, that's it. And so obviously that happened, and we had so many questions flying around. Obviously, Dad was a bit lost, my sister was a bit lost, and me being so young didn't really know what was going on. So time passed, we got everything sorted, had the funeral and things like that. But it was about a year or two later where my mental health really declined, because I kind of came to the forefront of my mind that she was dead, and I couldn't come to terms with it. So it was kind of like, right, here we are in this pit of fucking sadness that I couldn't get out of. And it was weird. Yeah. Are you going to say something?
No, I find it interesting that you're very direct in using the word dead, died, death. People shy away from those words, and they'll use like lost or past and things like that. And with work, we're taught to use those words specifically because it does help the processing. Did you find as a child that you were kind of maybe shielded from those words, that terminology?
Yeah, I think so, because like it took me a long, long time to come to terms with the fact that she wasn't going to come back. And I say now to people, like, I would rather just be like, that's it. She's dead, and that is just how it is. Like, it took me a long time to be able to admit to that. But I think because I've gotten over that point of being like, that's it. That's why I say she's dead, because I'm so used to being able to say it now, because it took me so long to get used to saying it. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, we all grieve in different ways, but that's how I grieved. And and that's obviously, I had counselling and stuff like that, but it took me, like I said, so long to come to terms with it that now I can say it. And, like, it's weird. Like, now I joke about it all the time, because it's just my way of coping with it. Because my mum, if she heard me joking about the stuff that I joke about now, with like, when people are like, oh, I wish my mum, like, oh, my mum's going to come see me play football today, I'll be like, yeah, same. And just like awkward jokes like that. But I know if my mum, wherever the fuck she is, she'd be laughing. And it's kind of just that kind of thing. That's just my coping mechanism.
There was something to do with like, I lost my dad. It's like, well, where did you put them? Where did you last see them?
Yeah.
And like, I do the same with my stepdad. Someone was like, I talked about my stepdad's bike, and they were like, won't you mind you borrowing it? And I'm like, no, it's dead. it's,
yeah, and people
it's how you deal with it, isn't it?
Yeah, that was it exactly. So obviously, 2 years passed, mental health kind of declined, and I became very, very suicidal. Just saw no way of, it's you get to that point where you're, waking up and not really seeing much further than a black hole. I can remember just being two people. I would have this shell of a person, and then this Sara that was completely depressed.
Nice.
I would self harm quite. Yeah, that's it. Just a glassed figure, essentially. Like, and I had counselling for a year or so, and I used to self harm quite badly. And I've got the scars to prove it. Like, if people are like, oh my god, you're such a liar, even though like I would never lie about something so serious as self harm. Like, it's something I get reminded of every day, but it's scars that I'm proud of because I managed to get through such a hard time. And if it wasn't for self harm and for my counsellor, I know for sure that I wouldn't be here today. I mean, my counsellor, anyone that comes to me and says, "Should I get counselling?" I'm like, yes, because without even knowing at the time, my counsellor saved my life. And it's like you're just sitting in a room talking to a stranger, but that stranger makes such a difference to how you're feeling and thinking that I would always recommend someone getting it if you're feeling like that, because she just sat there and listened. And I hated it. Don't get me wrong. I hated it for the first 3 or 4 months because I'm like, what the fuck is this bitch going to do? Like, and there were things I didn't want to tell her. Like, obviously, because I was under 18, I was still very young. Everything that put me in danger, they had to tell dad. And now, like, this is a bit dark, but I used to keep a rope above my cupboard because one night I was like, right, I'm just going to hang myself. I'm just going to go. And then obviously she had to tell dad that because I was in danger. And I didn't want to tell her that, but it slipped out one day. And, if it wasn't for me telling her that and relaying it and doing what she needed to do and like just sitting there and listening to me talk for an hour, I wouldn't be here today. And I know that for sure. And it was then where I started talking to her, my counselling and stuff. And I even got like admitted to CAMS, which is like a special like psychiatric counselling thing. I'm sure you've heard of CAMS, right?
Children and Adolescents Mental Health Services is what it stands for. And it's actually really, really hard. If you get admitted through CAMS, then you seriously need some help because generally they try and treat in the community. From my experience in the ambulance service, obviously I don't know all the ins and outs, but that's just what I've been exposed to.
Yeah. I was going to say, did you have much for a dealing with CAMS?
Yeah, I have dealt with quite a lot of younger people with varying degrees of mental health through work.
And I can imagine.
Because obviously, to hear that you went to CAMS is like that's amazing that they were able to get in and help in that way. I mean, my issues were like, you're obviously sort of 10 years younger than me. When I was going through some of my stuff, which we'll get onto in a bit, it was always very much like, well, children don't have mental health problems. Yeah, you're a child. You can't have that. No, it doesn't exist. Not real. No.
Yeah.
So what happened after CAM's involvement?
What's that?
What happened after CAM's got involved?
So CAM's got involved, and then I got assigned like a self-harm nurse. So like whenever I like ever have a nasty like incident or whatever, she would be there to clean up the mess essentially. And she was lovely, like she was amazing. So I would come out and in and out of CAMS. I almost got like fully admitted, but with the help of the self-harm nurse, I was able to stay at home and just have her come and see me once in a while. And she even sort of came and saw me at school, and she was there all the time, which was lovely. And she was the most amazing woman as well. Like, what's hard when you're going through like seeing CAMS, seeing this counsellor, seeing this nurse, seeing blah blah, you have to repeat the same fucking story all over and over again because people just need to catch up on what's going through your head. And I think that was one of the hardest reasons was, okay, going to this CAMS counsellor, going to this other counsellor, going to this nurse, when I'm like, I've repeated the same fucking story 100 times over. And I think that was one of the hardest things, was having all these people jumping in and out of my life that I had to explain what the reason I was here was for. But then again, like, flip that over and these people saved my life. It's crazy, like, when you think back to it. But then fast forward, obviously with CAMS, and I had my nurse, and then that's when I started going to the gym. because obviously, like I said, I was super sporty throughout my life, whatever, but I didn't realize like my sport hit another level the minute my mental health started to get really bad, because essentially like this is really weird, and like, well, it's not weird, but the self-harm, the pain that I got from self-harm, it would make me feel alive because I was so numb at the time. And it carries over to the pain that I feel when I'm training, but it's a positive pain, you know. That's why I think I'm a firm believer. That's why Connor can put me through such intense sets, because I fucking love pain. And like, it sounds so strange, but like pushing me to a point where I cannot move, I'm in like huge amounts of pain, I actually love it, because it's taking away like the negative pain that I would perceive from self-harm and putting it into a good pain, because I know I'm gonna improve and get better because it's through training. I'm getting close to that goal, closer to Olympia stage, you know, and I'm sure you completely agree and understand where I'm coming from.
Mine's slightly different.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah,
we've got a little bit of a lag on the internet.
Oh no! Fucking internet. No. It's okay. It's like coming in and out. It's not too bad. But yeah, like, and that's how I relate it back to training. And obviously we all still have those like really dark days. Don't get me wrong. Like, I've messaged you like some days where I'm like, look, I wake up and I can't even fucking breathe. Like, it's hard to breathe sometimes, but like when I go into the gym, I'm surrounded by like-minded people like you, Debs, Connor, you know, like I find my purpose. And when I found training and I found bodybuilding, that's when I found my purpose, because I lost it when I was so young and so lost in this fucking shitty depressive hole that I was in. Once I found my purpose, that's when things started to get better. And like, you know, that's when I started, you know, that's when I met Tom and stuff like that. And that's why I say to everyone, when you're in a bad place, like I've got a couple clients that I struggle from time to time, and I'm like, look, find that purpose and drive yourself towards it, because once you've found that purpose, you know, the only way is up, because you know why you're on this planet. Like, I'm a firm believer that we're on this planet for a reason. And when I found bodybuilding, that's when I found my purpose. And that's when things got so much better. Like, you know, I had a couple relapses, don't get me wrong. Like, I wouldn't self-harm for like a month, and then something would set me off and I'd start cutting again, and then I'd get better, and I would relapse a good few times, but that's only natural. It happens. Like, you're still learning how to cope with certain things, you know? And yeah, once I found training, it just was a game changer. And, you know, when it was funny, like during lockdown, people were like, oh, it's just a building. The gym is so much more than a building to a lot of us. Like, it's my social time. It's, you know, when I work with people like Connor, who's been in the same frame of mind, he's been, you know, in worse places than myself, and he gets it. Like, when I turn up and I'm off, he knows exactly when I'm off, you know, and it's important to be around like-minded people, because they understand what you're going through. And sometimes you just want to put your headphones in and put yourself through a fucking good session and just lift some weight. And, you know, that's what saved me, and it still does. So that's kind of why I train like I do. Yeah. That's me.
That's you. Oh God, that means it's me. I didn't have like
fun time.
I didn't have an event like that per se. My parents divorced when I was between 4 and 6. It's a bit hazy. And Mum and I moved around quite a lot. And I think it was about the age of 7 or 8, I started struggling sleeping. And I couldn't really work out why, but I would lie in bed and I was almost afraid of going to sleep. And it was like where your mind goes, like that lack of consciousness, lying there waiting for that to happen, and then it would make me anxious. So that was kind of the start of it all. And I'd be going to school with like sort of maybe 3 hours sleep, and then I'd start being sort of disproportionately anxious about things, like this obsession that the world was going to end, and like just thinking that I remember we were going on holiday, and I was so anxious there when we were in Tenerife that the plane was going to crash on the way back, that I didn't enjoy the holiday and I didn't sleep the whole time. I was consumed by this anxiety. And then it started kind of manifesting in my stomach. Like, you know, those butterflies you get when you're anxious. And I didn't have an eating disorder as such, but I didn't eat because I felt sick or I had pain. So I was really probably underweight and undernourished, but it was not linked to a body image perception. It was the anxiety was so consuming. So not only was I not sleeping, I wasn't eating.
Yeah.
That kind of improved when my mum met it got worse initially when my mum met my stepdad, because I was moving around between her place, or our home, my dad's place, and then my stepdad's place. But when I started sharing a room with my stepsister, it got better. And then we ended up with separate rooms, and it got worse again. The sleep got really, really bad. And that was like when I was about 13. And then at 14, I started self-harming as well. Apart from nobody, I was like prolific at hiding it. It was always just like one wrist, and I'd wear a sweatband. It was the 90s. You could get away with wearing a sweatband and being all Avril Lavigne, and like inner thighs, feet, those sorts of places where people just wouldn't see. And I remember my mum saw once, and she was like, "Why are you doing that?" And I just clammed up. I didn't say anything, but she didn't do anything about it. And I used to say like to her that I wasn't sleeping, and she wouldn't do anything about, "Oh, don't be so silly. Just go back. Lie still and close your eyes and you'll fall asleep."
Yeah.
And it's like, as a child, as I grew up, I really struggled with that lack of support. I didn't have counselling or anything until I was an adult. But for me, it's weird. I was talking about this with Dan the other day, how a lot of people get their solace in training. Sorry, flies. A lot of people get their solace from training in in lifting those heavy weights, and they go to the dark place to do that set. For me, my dark place is cardio. That's where I go. Like in prep, where I feel like I'm about to fall off the treadmill or fall off the cross trainer, that's my dark happy place. And like I used to run to just switch off from the anxiety. It was the one time doing something cardiovascular that I'd feel relief from that constant exhausting anxiety. But when I was growing up, I didn't recognize, it's only as an adult that I can now identify that emotion as anxiety. I didn't know what it was as a kid, so I didn't know how to explain it to the adults. And my worst period of mental health was actually as an adult, and it was in 2019. I had 5 months off work. I'd moved down from London, had a really bad relationship, moved in with my mum, felt like I'd had to leave London because I couldn't afford to live there anymore. And that was a real struggle to kind of get my head around, that I felt it wasn't a choice to leave. And I remember I was with a patient. She was really unwell, and my colleague had gone out to get our trolley bed, and I was just staring at the wall, trying not to cry in her front room. And she was proper sick. She was proper poorly. And I went sick for 5 months from work after that patient. And that deep, dark hole that you were describing, I felt that in 2019. But it was more as a result of the stress I was under. And like I stopped washing. I didn't change I'd go to the gym. The only thing that kept me going was going to the gym. The only thing that got me out of bed was going to the gym. And I'd already done PCA London in 2018, but the prep for Southwest and then Body Power in 2019 got me out of that hole, because I had to get up. I'd committed, paid, I had to get up, I had to go, had to do my cardio, had to do my strength. But I had counselling then, and one of the really helpful techniques he did was almost self-soothing your younger self. It sounds really weird. And I was like, "You want me to do what?" And luckily it was quite late on in our journey that we did that, because if he'd asked me to do that early on, I would have been like, "You're on crack, mate." What? How's that going to help me? It was like, you need to go back and you need to talk to that child, and you need to tell that child that it's okay and it's not their fault. The adults don't understand. And I found that was really cathartic, because it's like, you're right. The adults in my life should have recognised that I wasn't eating, that I wasn't sleeping, that I was off school all the time, and nobody did. And that's no criticism on my parents. It was the 90s. Kids were just like,
a very different time.
Oh, no. You're untouched. You haven't had time to be fucked up yet. But turns out you are. For me, training with... Sorry?
I think prep as well, like because it requires so much of your time, so much of your effort, so much of your focus. It gives you that that focus on something that really requires a lot of attention. So it kind of weans you away from feeling so shit.
Yeah. For me, it was the self-harm wasn't about the pain, it was about the release. The
Yeah.
anxiety would dissipate from the cutting.
Yeah.
Maybe that was from the pain, maybe the pain distracted it, but so did running, so did hockey, so did athletics. And then, I mean, I was going to the gym, but in a different capacity. It wasn't a bodybuilding type thing, because I didn't discover that until I was in my 30s. But I think if I'd had bodybuilding a lot younger, I probably would have suffered less.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of it is about finding your tribe as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds like cringy.
No, not cringy at all. Yeah, it is about finding those people, isn't it? Your people.
And feeling like you belong and accepted. And I was always a bit emo, a bit goth, a bit like black eyeliner, that sort of shit, black nail varnish. Sorry?
My Chemical Romance days. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. But before My Chemical Romance existed.
Oh yeah, they were probably babies when you were a child.
Yeah, when time began and dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Yeah, I just listened to the T-Rex roar.
That's the thing with like, is that you're saying about the people of your gym, you're saying about the people of your gym. It's 9 out of 10 that somebody in there has felt something like that, why it's so belonging, but you don't see it in other sports because you got athletics, where you got like, oh, you got the posh kids and like doing this, you got daddy's money, and then they're like, I got nothing wrong. But then you go to say football, like the lowest of football, and you got people playing football who's got no money, got family that's buggered off, this, that, and the other. And that's why, like, since you guys met, you can really see that, like, you guys get on really well because you guys have gone into a similar area of why you've gone into gymming.
Friends.
Friends.
Friends. Debs of. I'll go see. I'm kind of envisaging or embodying Debs' paleness, I feel. Maybe it's just because I've done my roots. You're like, look more ginge.
Fresh ginge.
Making me look pale.
Fresh ginge.
Fresh ginge.
Love it.
So with your coaching needs, have you had many people that have sort of suffered significantly with their mental health that you've had to deal with?
So when I first started coaching was when I was 15. I got injured, so long story, old. But I had a player who had autism who just found it hard to just get anywhere because he wasn't diagnosed at the time. So he was a very good player, this, that, and the other. And as soon as the coach found out he was autistic, done. The coach didn't want anything to do with him, benched him, this, that, and the other. And because of that, his mental health did decline due to like not being able to play with his friends properly, because obviously autism, you want a bit of routine, you want to play, you want to do this, that, and the other. But as soon as the coach found it out, he was just like, no. And you can tell from the kid who was so happy, like, oh my God, I've got football, I've got training, oh my God, I'm going to see my friends. To now, do I have to go? I'm not going to play. I'm not going to enjoy it. And it's just like, he was up here, happy go Larry, and now he's just down here. He doesn't play sports anymore at all. And it's just that one person who influenced his life is just gone.
Yeah.
And it's really sad to see. And I, in my JPL squad now, I got this little kid who first session I just watched him, and he was a bit too hyper, a bit too, what's the word? It's not annoying, but it's annoying. A little bit too much.
Enthusiastic.
Yeah. Way, like another level. You know, you got players who are like, oh, good play. He was another level. And I went to the head coach of our centre. I was like, has he got someone with him? And he's like, I don't know. His parents haven't checked. But like, just by watching him, it's just you adapt the way he is. And now he's like, he makes a worldie save. I'm like proper gloating him up. And his his concentration just goes higher and higher. But like that's kids. But then I go into adults, and you got people who's got this, that, and the other. And who was it when I was at Cheltenham?
Do you get a lot of adults that perhaps haven't had any sort of formal diagnosis, but you can see the traits sticking out like a sore thumb?
Yeah, I was with a women's team a couple of years ago, and we had a centre mid who seemed to be a bit on the spectrum, and the way she trained and did stuff, it was just very like pinpoint. And as soon as it didn't go, or like the way the coach didn't explain something, the head was just gone, and then you just lost them for the entire time. But like you get coaches who are just like, this is where I'm doing it, this is where I'm got to be done. And then you got others who just sit there, observe, and be like, have you noticed like this, or have you noticed that? And it's just it's a lot more of seeing players who are on the spectrum, or if you're a bit of a lower level, you can see players who got a bit of a darker past popping in and out occasionally.
Yeah. I think as well, it's like super important as, coaches there are some coaches out there that completely ignore the mental health of their clients, but it's such a massive percentage of something that or percentage of how an athlete approaches training, approaches meal plans, approaches whatever the sport may be, that the coach needs to make a very firm point of making sure the athlete's okay, and making sure that, if you do have a problem or you are struggling with something, talk to me, and then we can adapt around it. Like Lyts has worked with a lot of people who are on the spectrum, who do have mental health issues, and she's got the knowledge and the skill to be able to adapt the training, adapt how she coaches them. Because I don't know, is there a certain way that you would approach someone who does have autism or who does have mental health issues? Like, is there a way you would change the training?
Yeah, it's just the way you present yourself to them. So like if I'm training you, I'm just going to tell you, go kick that ball from there to there. But if I'm telling somebody who's on the spectrum, who's just generally not in the mood, you completely change it up, and you just add those little targets. Oh, you got it from there, brilliant. Now you got to get from there to there, but can you do it from this to this? And It's just, you got those players who are just like imaginative, who are just going to go, but you got these other people who just like, you got to break it down, just slow it down, because it's just, they might not be mentally there today, or just might not just be having their fix today. And it's just, yeah.
It's odd because like how different cues can provoke different reactions. Like I can't deal with somebody shouting at me when I'm doing a set, like, and going one more, because the stubborn side of me is like, no, fuck off. I'll tell you when I'm done, not you.
Fuck yeah. I'm like that.
Just kind of protect him. But if that person just let me do the set, I would just keep going and going and go. Because you remember when we were at Body World and we were on the row, and I think one of you said one more or something, and I was just row for fucking days. I love a row.
Fuck you guys.
So, you stop so one of us can actually do a set now, please.
You can fuck off with your one more reps.
See, like, you chatted at, you like to, but then like me and you would go train, and like you'd be doing this that, and the other, and I just don't even look in the mirror. I don't even like comprehend what I'm doing. I just like done. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, coming back to like coaching and stuff is something I have a couple of my clients do who do suffer with their mental health, is break the week down. And also when you check in with me on the weekend, there's a portion of my check-in sheet that I have that just says silver linings from the week. So like, even if you've had a shitty week, tell me about it, but also tell me about something that's gone really well. So like, I don't know, you missed a PB by like, I don't know, 2 or 3 reps, but your silver lining is you managed to still stay where you need to stay, and you actually turned up to the gym that day. That's awesome. Like, instead of being a glass half empty, be a glass half full, because it's an amazing, you're amazing. You're an amazing person, that kind of thing. And we need to find those silver linings to try and get you out of your negative headspace into a positive one, because we can all achieve amazing things. It's just how far we're willing to take our head. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that also, like, resilience is is crucial in that, I think. But that, I think, is something that you can learn and can improve, like
Yes.
being able to cope with those downfalls.
Mm.
Yeah, how you
Yeah, I mean,
manage them.
I was saying to someone else the other day is, you know, bad mental health isn't about like isn't you shouldn't see it as something bad, because every time you get through a day where you're depressed, you're sad, is amazing that you've got through that day. You know, you are a step
Yeah,
closer to being who you want to be. This mental health block or bad set of mental health that you've got is only going to make you stronger at the end. Like I would most certainly not be who I am today if I didn't go through what happened in my life. I wouldn't be as resilient. I wouldn't be as dedicated, motivated, as driven as I am without what happened with the family and stuff like that.
yeah,
Like, as a family, we kept getting hit down, hit down, hit down. Like, you know, my dad got diagnosed with a cancer that isn't even fucking curable. And, you know, we still smash it as a family. We still get through those days. And people are like, oh, woe is me. This happened, this happened. Get up, move on. You've got to do it. That's why coming back to the dead thing, is that's why I say, oh, you know, she's dead. We need to move on. We can't spend our life
yeah,
gloating or being upset, because you know, it's going to teach us one day that we are stronger than we think we are. You just have to keep taking those steps forward. And if one day is too much, then just take smaller steps. You know, sometimes you need to take 2 steps back to go 2 steps forward, or whatever that saying is. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's all about thinking, right, my mental health is in a bad way, but if I can get through these days, small steps, then I'm going to be a hugely stronger person at the other end of it. I mean, it's hard to see at the time, but it's about finding those coping mechanisms and, you know, working out how you want to go forward, but you're going to get there in the end. It's just sometimes hard to see.
yeah. I think for me, my period of stress and depression was because I was at mental capacity with things that had happened, like in the space of sort of 3-4 years. Serious relationship breakdown, stepdad died, started a new relationship, that ended. I had quite a succession of stressful jobs in London. Like I was at London Bridge, the first terror attack.
So
So I had that to deal with as well.
to go into that, remind us what that was, because I was trying to think of it the other day and I couldn't.
That was the Borough Market attack, where they had a transit van full of, it wasn't improvised explosive devices, but at the time it was just barrels, and they
Yeah.
strapped knives to their hands, and they drove into some railings by Grind Coffee on down by Borough Market, and then went down into Borough Market and kind of ransacked all of that. I think I can't remember off the top of my head how many people actually died.
Yeah.
I want to say about 10, something like that. But there was that one, and then about a month later there was Finsbury Park, where that was actually, so the London Bridge was sort of Islamic extremists,
Yeah.
and then Finsbury Park was far right extremist who waited for midnight mosque to kick out and literally tried to ram down a load of people. Only one person died from that. But those are like the big things. But I got to the point where every patient I was seeing was taking a little bit of me,
Yeah.
and like I was losing a bit of myself, and the emotional and empathetical energy I had to give to each patient just was sucking me dry, was sucking my soul.
Yeah.
And then on top of all this, like other mental stress, a lot of other family stuff, like I say, relationship up and downs, it all piles in. And it was something my counsellor was like, you're stuck in fight or flight mode because you're at capacity, you're at mental capacity, you are full.
Yeah.
And you cannot take any more.
Yeah.
So a lot of my stress and depression was actually a coping mechanism that my body put myself into to try and get back to a functioning, like I just had this, I couldn't look at an ambulance, I couldn't look at my uniform. I was like, I can't be a paramedic anymore. What the fuck am I going to do with my life?
Yeah.
Like that is all I know how to do. That is all I have ever done.
Yeah.
But it got better. It does take time, and I think recognizing, allowing yourself to have that time is really important if that's what is causing things to be bad. But
Yeah,
obviously, that's just my that particular experience. Actually,
yeah, like
anxiety wasn't too bad at that point. Spent
woo.
my anxiety.
I think that's something they don't really touch upon. Like that's why I find you so amazing as a person because of your past and your paramedic experience and stuff like that. As is something I've always wondered. As like a paramedic, how do you deal with the the death that you have on a daily? Like, is that something that you just get used to? Obviously, you said that it took a little bit,
The dead are
but
easy.
yeah,
The dead are easy. We don't have to do anything. I know that sounds really harsh, but they're dead.
yeah,
Like as a paramedic, can't do. They don't talk. It's the family that are quite draining in that situation.
yeah,
Seeing a dead body to me doesn't faze me, doesn't bother me.
yeah,
Even from the first one I saw, it was just like, oh, they're dead.
yeah.
But then I've also been brought up in a family where death, like my dad was a farmer, animals died, we ate them, circle of
Animals
life. So death
died,
wasn't
we
something.
ate them.
Circle of life.
Cows, not dogs,
Yeah.
just cows and pigs and the occasional chicken. But it's more the living that are a problem. It's
It's all the emotion.
it's one in particular that sticks out to me, and it's not gory, it's not Gucci, there's no blood. There's a little lady who was in her 80s. Her husband had died about 5 years before. She got up to go for a wee in the night, fallen over, ended up on the floor. She suffered Parkinson's. So those that don't know, Parkinson's is kind of a movement disorder, based on sort of problems with dopamine in your brain. You have your tremors, you can't necessarily walk properly, they shuffle a lot, they're prone to falls, prone to trips, balance problems. That's just a brief bit I know. From my dad's got it as well. But this little lady, she'd ended up on the floor, so we picked her up, dusted her off, made her a cup of tea, put her back into bed. Normally they sit and have a chat, and you're like, oh, who's that? You swap out the photos, give them a bit of a biscuit or something, cup of tea, make them feel happy. She didn't drink the tea. She rolled over in a single bed, adopted the fetal position, and just said, I just want to die. I don't want to be here anymore. I just want to die. It's actually giving me goosebumps. Like, and that was 18 years ago, and I still remember it.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of shit that hits you here.
Yeah.
Like somebody that's been stabbed doesn't bother me. Blood, just crack on. You've got there's a job, there's a role, you do it. It's the emotional side of people that it is really like. And like I say, that's not blood, guts, gore, glamour. That's someone's nan that I picked up off the floor and put back into bed. And that's the sort of shit that like I say, I still remember it now. And that was the stuff that was pulling on me before I became unwell.
Yeah.
And that's part of why I ended up in the control room rather than being out on the ambulances, because I got to the point where I recognised that seeing patients, unfortunately, is no longer good for my mental health, and that's quite a bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a strength in itself that you were able to see that and admit to yourself that it wasn't good for you. I mean, that's the first hurdle in itself, is being able to admit I'm not healthy. Like mentally, I can't do this. Like I need help, and that is a huge thing to overcome and be able to fix. Okay, I say that to loads of people, is being able to notice that you're not happy and being able to go and get help or move yourself out of the situation that's putting you in that mentally unwell position is amazing, because you've managed to see that. So some people see it as a weakness, but I see it as a strength because you've been able to notice the issue.
When I started in the ambulance service back in 2005, it was very much like you were weak if you cracked. If you showed any emotion, if you showed you were bothered by anything, you were weak. Yeah. And luckily that mentality has completely shifted now, and it is all about it's okay to not be okay. And there is a lot of mental health promotion within the ambulance service. I don't know if it's the same in the other services. I hope so. because they see just as much fucked up shit as we do in the
Yeah.
ambulance. They're with us, fire, police, they're there. It's I think it's really nice to see that development of people being able to talk about it more openly. But then I still don't. Like, if I'm just chatting to somebody that I don't know particularly well, I'll say I'm in the control room because it suits bodybuilding better. And yeah, that is very true, but it's not the main reason.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's great. I get to eat when I want, which I didn't when I was out on the road with the ambulances.
Yeah, excuse me, I just have to have a meal.
See, it's weird because
Yeah, it is. I'd be with a patient, like, obviously the ones that weren't that were well-ish. I wouldn't have, if they were proper sick, I wouldn't. But I just got to go and get something, and I'd be like stuffing some of my food in my face. My crewmate would know what I'm doing. I'm just like,
there you go.
And it was the water loading on prep as well.
Yeah. Sorry.
Constantly needing a wee.
Yeah, sorry, I just need to go and piss.
Yeah. Can I borrow your toilet again?
What were you going to say, Lyts?
it's just weird that like you guys, like obviously Romana saying that mental health has come from 0 to nothing, and then you're saying as well that you've had therapy and this and that. Another bit of a personal question, but were you guys like, did you guys just one day just, why Romana?
Yeah, your video's gone.
Jesus!
I missed that. Sorry, say it again.
Your video.
How did we start talking?
Your video went.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it's gone.
Am I back?
It's right, we can still hear you.
But like, sorry, you're saying that you went from therapy to going to the gym and doing this. Romana, you said like the mental health has went from 0 to like something in your industry now. Obviously seeking therapy as well. Did you go from just doing something, or were you like given medication? And that's a bit of a personal question because like,
Oh, no.
go on.
So first off, I think I started counselling first. Well, it wasn't. I say it's counselling. It wasn't counselling. It was psychotherapy. I saw a psychotherapist, which is different. I've been to counselling before, which was more just talk, whereas the psychotherapy was like probing a little bit. So I started that, and then luckily we had a close family friend who I could talk to quite openly. Her daughter had significant mental health problems, and we were talking, and she was like, "You're not going to like this, but I think you benefit from antidepressants." And I didn't like it, but I did it, and I'm so glad I did, because that lifted the cloud enough to be able to start doing the work to get better. It was more of a problem when I wanted to come off the antidepressants. My GP was like, "Oh, no. And I'm like, "No, yes.
Yeah.
Don't need these anymore."
See, that's
I self-tapered. I don't advise this. I don't recommend coming off your antidepressants yourself, but I literally tapered very sensibly down from, I think my top dose was 175 milligrams of sertraline. And I had them in my Dosset box, and I literally just hid. It was like, I didn't know how much I was taking each day because I do them a month in advance. And by the end of the month, I was off it.
no, fair play.
But they definitely... Have I gone again?
No, we went dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you get people so like self-reliant on it, and it kind of hinders them as well. Because like you're saying, you train, you got there, you did your therapy, and then medication, and then you tapered off. But like you're saying, like the GP is just like, no, this, that, and the other, and like you see people now who are so reliant on medication that it's just their whole personality is just reliant on the medication. Would you say?
Yeah.
Would you say it's either or do you kind of have to? You have to just more like motivate
I think
yourself in some sense. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think it's very dependent on the reason you're on the antidepressants. I had an external stressor or multiple of external stressors that put me in a mental state that meant the antidepressants helped me pull out of that. Some people have like actual clinical depression. Some people have chemical imbalances, and they will be reliant on medication because that's the way their brain is sort of wired. It's like, I've got dyslexia, so that's just the way my brain is wired. Unfortunately, some people are just wired to be more depressed and suffer more from mental health problems, just like some people will suffer more with lung problems or heart problems. It's in our genetics. So for me, not being reliant on them was quite easy, because once I decompressed from that stress, I didn't have the emotions that meant I needed them. But there are people out there who will unfortunately always feel in that hole no matter what they do. So they may well go up and down doses depending what's going on in their life. They may change their antidepressant. They may try different things. They may come off them. Nope, doesn't work. Might go back on them. It's so dependent on the individual and their circumstances and how they're feeling and what they're going through.
I do think that
it's
I mean, controversial opinion, but like any Tom, Dick and Harry can go into the doctors and say they're sad and they'll just give them antidepressants. Like personally, I never used them because I knew I would become dependent on them. Like in some circumstances, like a big emphasis on some, I think that the antidepressants are just putting a plaster over an open wound. You're not actually even fixing the problem. It's like, for example, take sports therapy. Like you're trying to find the fault, not just massaging over a muscle that's tight. Why is that muscle tight? And I think a lot of the time, or not a lot of the time, some of the time, sorry, that people take antidepressants and don't actually fix why they're sad. If there is a reason, it's like, for example, like with me, like obviously, like it was a family loss. Why? Okay, so I'm sad because of that loss. Instead of putting antidepressants and just keeping
that's not going to go away.
What's that?
Yeah, that's not going to go away.
Exactly. So instead of putting antidepressants,
plaster on that grief.
Exactly. So let's try and work out how we can help the grieving process instead of masking it with antidepressants. And I think that's very, very.
I do feel, unfortunately, the NHS and especially mental health services, where they are so stressed and stretched, like trying to get a mental health referral at work is really, really hard, and it's really, really sad.
Yeah.
But I do feel, anecdotally through my experience of talking to different people, that you're right, antidepressants are handed out a bit like Smarties. Like even when I went to my GP with my hormone issues after my last prep, oh well, are you depressed? I'm like, no, I'm just tired.
I'm just tired.
Oh, well, you must be depressed. Here's some do you want some antidepressants? No, I don't. It's nothing. I'm not depressed. I felt depressed. I've been depressed. I am not depressed. I just can't stay awake.
I am not depressed.
I can't stay awake.
No, you said it's so easy to.
Sorry?
I said I'm not depressed, Gary. Leave me alone.
Yeah. Stop trying to tell me I'm depressed. Stop trying to tell me how to feel. But that's another thing. It's there are a lot of women, perimenopausal, postmenopausal, that are being wrongly given antidepressants because they have no hormones. That's why they're feeling depressed and tired, because they have no hormones. And it's like, oh, have some sertraline. How about you give them some HRT? Yeah, probably work better.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about like male and female, like HRT, well, let's first talk about HRT as a woman. Like after I came out of my prep last year, obviously my hormones were fucked. So I was like, I got into a hole where I was depressed. I couldn't get out of it. Obviously that mixed in with post-show blues, it's just fucking hell. When I got put on HRT, it was like a cloud had been lifted. It was unbelievable. Like I could see clearly, think clearly. Like you're probably the same, Ro. Like everything was just back in a way that it should be. And I think a HRT for women is very much overlooked nowadays, even though it's coming up. Like, don't get me wrong, there are more people on HRT female wise, but I think it should be something that's looked into a little bit more, especially when there's a dip in emotion and stuff like that.
You said about the stigma around prescribing HRT.
Sorry, hang on a minute, we've got an interjection.
So have you talked about the stigma around prescribing?
We talked about how GPs will hand out antidepressants rather than HRT.
There's also a stigma.
Oh, there's that study, that one study.
That one study, Dan.
Oh, Ethan.
Okay. So talking about a little bit what I have to deal with a lot of clients who are not using any PEDs, not they're obviously natural, and they're very, very hard by trying to convince them to even get their blood work to check their hormones out, which can be quite hard, because you ask a natural athlete, like, can we get some blood work? They're like, no, never, because they see it as a stigma, especially in terms of, because I work with a lot of males, so it's a little bit on the other side of the coin. What I see of a lot of males that have underlying depression is their blood work, their hormones are well out of range, like rock bottom testosterone levels.
Yeah.
And it's trying to convince these. So I had a client, it must have been last year, that I asked him, would you get some blood work? Because he suffered from clinical depression, on the antidepressants, everything. And would you get some blood work so we can look at the possibility at looking at your hormone profile, and then maybe we could pinpoint the issue that there's a hormonal imbalance, then we can replace that testosterone with a TRT, go through a clinic. And the client actually accused me of trying to put him on steroids. Not my MO at all. I'm actually anti-steroid when it comes to my clients.
Yeah.
So that's what he did. Then recently, I did find out he ended up going to a very, very good coach called Hilly, who did get him on TRT, and he's happy as a pig in shit now. He's great, cloud lifted, everything like that. But you could see at the time, maybe I wasn't wording it right, but there was a massive stigma, even amongst males, at trying to look into hormonal profiles and get them on TRT. It's seen as dirty or underground or something like that.
It's like when I came off prep and I had my blood work done, it was about 6 weeks after prep, and I still had, my testosterone was unreadable, my estrogen was unreadable, my progesterone was unreadable.
Yeah.
And my GP's answer to that, this is 6 weeks. So I was now in a calorie surplus. I had put on quite a lot of body weight quite quickly. Tom was like, right, let's get you out of this hole. Feed me. So he did. And so it wasn't like I was still undernourished, and that's why my hormones were so shit. But my GP's answer to fixing my hormones, and the fact that I hadn't had a cycle since March 2021, and that's now November 2021, her answer to that was, just stop exercising.
Just stay at home.
Just stop exercising. Stop doing the thing that keeps up here sorted when you've got no hormones and you're just tired all the fucking time.
Like,
that's not the answer. So HRT was, like you say, I suddenly started seeing the world in colour. Yeah. But there is this, like, I find it incredibly frustrating that there is this massive divide between the research in bodybuilding and what we know versus the NHS's willingness to kind of actually look at these hormones and kind of go, maybe that's why they're fucked up.
Yeah.
Well, we know why is because they're reading from oftentimes a clinical perspective, which sometimes makes them blind to another perspective, which our perspective is going to be more biased towards performance and putting muscle on and whatnot. But there's also some benefits as to what a bodybuilder knows, and that is totally taken for granted. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes when I get blood work, I've got a doctor to explain it to. I'm the one trying to explain to them how blood work is a picture in time, how different markers do interrelate, and it's about the bigger picture, how things are linked together, and not even GPs know that. Yeah. So how do you expect a GP to understand where we're coming from when it comes to applying the HRT? It's because they're taught out of a textbook that does not relate to bodybuilders at all.
And I think that's like there are points, like I've had a few problems, but I've been like, I'm not going to a doctor because they're just going to think she's on steroids, it must be steroids. And like you said, they're all kind of just reading from a textbook, and it's just not they're not branching out and learning other things,
Well, Sara, do you remember a few weeks ago I was in hospital with dehydration? Well, you might not saw it on Instagram. I come down really ill where I had a stomach bug and I couldn't get hydrated at all. It got to the point I had to go in A&E to just get on an IV drip. And before it took them 2 hours. Yeah, well, it took them 2 hours to actually get me on an IV. And before they even considered that, they were asking what steroids I was using. And I didn't even tell them I was a steroid user.
For fuck's sake.
And you can see how I'm telling them, no, I've got Campylobacter and I just can't get hydrated. It's going in that hole and coming out the other. I can't get it down. You need to put me on IV. It took them 2 hours to put me on an IV drip because they were trying to assess my steroid usage and not understanding it. Then, funny enough, last month, Dave Crosden got called to go to the exact hospital that I had the issue with to educate them.
Huh. Well, at least they're getting educated.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Dave is to do with Eval, who I work for, but also has a long history and knowledge of steroid interactions, pharmacology, anatomy, physiology, all that.
He's a smart cookie.
Brain with legs.
Brain with legs.
I'm working on getting him on here.
Yes.
He is.
Indeed. I mean, coming back to male and female, Lyts, like, have you found with your experience in coaching, there's a big difference between male athletes and female athletes regarding like mental health and things like that?
I've coached more women than men, but during refereeing, you get quite close to a lot of players, and it seems to be quite a lot more quiet on the men's side, just because lads, I ain't gonna tell anybody. But then a girl, it's easier to talk to a girl, but then as well, it's easy for, statistically, apparently, it's easy for a man to talk to a woman because of the role that a woman has, like a mother figure. So it's just a lot easier in general. With women, like, it's pretty easy to open up, I would say. It takes a lot of effort. But with men, it's just, you got to proper dig deep. And there's people I work with, which I've been friends with for 4 years, who are just opening up to me. Because as a guy, you don't talk about it because it's not manly. But that's just like, obviously, with bodybuilding, you have to, you, like, regardless what you are, like Dan, I just thought your name for a second.
Big Dan.
All right. But like Dan was saying, like, you got a guy who's like that, who isn't going to open up, then you as a coach, your reputation is going to go down. You start like thinking about your way of coaching as well. Because like, there's a few players that I've had where just trying to talk to them compared to me to the male head coach was completely different. And I would be there with a sports therapist. We'll just be sitting there and players will actively avoid the first 15 minutes of the session. So they'll come and talk to me and the female physio about whatever. And then he'll come and ask afterwards. And it's just like, it's a bit confidential on that side. But yeah, it's just the whole man's man and women is just naturally easy to talk to.
Yeah.
But that's just
I found that when I
found with...
Oh. Go on.
I was just going to say, at work, I've found that like quite often, especially some of the men that are kicking off with their mental health and becoming violent and aggressive. I worked with a guy he was an ex-bodybuilder, covered in tattoos, shaved head, stocky. He'd go in and the patient would just kick off. If I went in first, and obviously I was smaller than I am now, they wouldn't kick off because it's like suddenly you've just deflated them. What are you two doing?
I'm thirsty.
Just like little funny, having a woman there would sort of diffuse the situation, and they would talk a bit more than to my male colleagues.
Yeah. It's just the energy that a woman has. It's just the like, it's more of a lighter.
We're special.
What was that?
It looked like that. I said we're special. You're just thinking.
Well, if you get like if you had Dan walk into a room, big bulky guy, you're like a bit intimidating. But if you have
no offense, Dan.
But if you have Romana,
I'm actually pussycat.
I'm an angel, mate. I'm an angel. But if you have like,
I feel like we're missing an in joke.
But if you have like me, Sara, or Romana walk in, it's a completely different energy that just gets brought in. Just because we're obviously physically smaller than a man, but just the way we talk, the way our body is just more of an open thing compared to man. We have like a guy walks in, it's just like big, manly, but you won't know what a man is like until they start talking. But with a woman, it's straight away.
I found that when I was...
That's social conditioning, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I found that when I was a sports therapist. Obviously, I worked with like multiple men's clubs in rugby, and it was me and my university student, me and her worked as a team for a long time, and a lot of the boys would come in and I would be massaging them, taping them, doing whatever, injury, whatever, and they would open up. And just purely because I'd be like, something's up, what's up? And even though I was like 10 years younger than half of them, they'd be like, oh, you know what, I had a fight with my girlfriend, I'm just fucking pissed. Like, and it's just been like, what I used to find is doing massage, people just lie on there because it's an hour and just open up. And it's like some of the biggest lads we had in the rugby squad would just come in just to speak to 2 university students because they felt that they could, because we not only were females. Like, this is not saying that all men you can't open up to, but like, I feel that if we were 2 lads, they probably wouldn't have come in and spoken to us in the way they did. But because we were 2 young women who were good at doing what we did, they would come in and have a chat with us.
I wonder as well if it's the comfort in the unfamiliar. Like, I've always, quite often, I found it easier to talk to somebody that doesn't know me particularly, because I'm not going to bump into that person. My thing is, like, sometimes I don't want to talk. So if I tell somebody that I see on a regular basis and they start asking me about something that I don't want to talk about, that makes me feel really awkward. And it's almost like, oh, fuck, I told them that. Oh, I wish I hadn't now, because I don't want to talk about it right now. But if you open up to a relative stranger, then that you might not see very often, or you're less likely to bump into when you don't want to talk about it, it suddenly becomes easier. So maybe it's not a gender thing at all. Maybe it's just...
No, I'm the other way around.
Really?
I'm the other way around. I can't talk to people that I don't know. I don't find comfortable because, I don't know, it might be our industry, but I get, so I've told you before, I'll get random people and something's going on, like they've probably followed me for a while, but I don't know them personally, and they'll message me something like, hey mate, if you need to talk, you know where I am. I don't know who you fucking are. Like,
I don't mean that.
But do you know what I mean? Like, it's like people assert themselves in that position to be therapists, but I don't think in every situation that is their MO. I think their MO is
they want the gossip.
Yeah.
They want the gossip.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah. I'm talking more like I don't know, like a therapist or a counsellor, or well, a counsellor, that's their job, but
I think there's definitely someone who's trained.
Yeah.
Because again, we spoke about offloading your issues to people that really can't take them.
Yeah.
Because it bears a heavy weight as well. Offloading your issues to somebody who perhaps hasn't got the facilities up there to take it. Because if you're a coach, you're probably coming across lots of mental health problems.
Yeah.
Imagine if you deal with mental health problems all day long, you're going to start having that dark cloud over you.
When I was in London, they had a staff support network where you put yourself forward to be that point of contact. If anyone was struggling, they could approach you and have a private, confidential conversation and kind of offload a little bit.
Yeah.
And one of the requirements, I did that. I was one of the staff support workers. And one of the requirements was that we had to go to group counselling twice a year and one-on-one counselling twice a year. So 4 sessions a year to offload all the stuff that had been offloaded on us.
Yeah.
But there's also, when I did the training course for that, there was this idea that some people Joe Public find easier to open up to, and there's no rhyme or reason about it, but you have people come and offload to you. I found it quite a lot. I'd get in an ambulance to start a 12-hour shift, and within half an hour, Karen has told me all her woes and all her, like, that she's had a row with her boyfriend. One woman was talking to me about how her sister was engaged to somebody that they made their living through being, what do they call it? Like fraud.
Like scam.
Con artist.
Yeah, con artist, that's it. Like, this guy made it, and all the family problems around that, and he was a gambler as well, and oh man, it was just like, this is a lot.
Yeah, well, what kind of heavy toll does that pay on you, having all those people come to you with their problems?
That's why I ended up having 5 months off work for stress and depression.
Fucking Karen.
It definitely
The
depends
mixture.
on who.
Karen.
Definitely depends on who, because like when me and you got together, like how hard was it for me to open up to you?
Yeah, if we're going to be like in a relationship kind of level, like, I mean, it took you 3, 6, even longer than that, 3 months, 6 months to open up to me because of obviously previous past events. And it's just trying to work out who you're comfortable opening up to, be that a stranger or not. Like, and we've been together 7 years, and like, you know, it took her that long to open up to me, and I'm not the kind of person that's going to force someone to open up to me either. So, you know, like you said, it's just finding out who you're comfortable opening up to, you know?
Yeah, because like my brother, like his cancer thingy, like I literally just went on to you, but then I'll go into work and talk to my duty manager, and it's stone cold, no emotion, done. But then I'll like literally regurgitate everything back onto you. Like when I heard my auntie died, like I was straight on the phone to you, like absolutely bawling my eyes out. But then somebody else, like it took so long, but then somebody else who I've worked with for 4 years, it's just stone cold, no emotion, straight face, bitch faces on, and just nothing's happened, just same old.
Yeah.
I've been in relationships before where I've never opened up, like, but that was because the person I was with was quite a closed off person as well.
Yeah. Hi, like, I'm Romana, and I've just entered this earth. I have no past.
What?
It's just me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you knew a little bit, but like even some of the stuff we've talked about on here, nothing, because it just wasn't. I mean, that's kind of why it didn't work out.
It's like when I was younger playing football, my mum was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I had nobody to talk to, and that was like 9, 10, and that's when I was doing really well at football. I was getting academy levels, so I was getting invited to like Bristol Rovers, Bristol City, and as soon as that like all news hit, my dad went into depression, my sister went into depression, like tablets, this, that, and the other. I tried to play football, but my parents affected the football. Like my dad, like didn't want to take me anywhere, this and the other. And I had a social worker, not fit like an actual social worker. There was a social club just down like 2 seconds down the road from me, and there's this lady Leslie there. She just watched, and she went to my mum like, you know, your daughter's depressed, and she was like, what? And I was a very angry teenager, like incredibly angry, fights with everyone. I was an absolute bitch. But it's just like the whole like radio silence, and that's why it's taken so long for like me to open up to you and so on. It's just nutty of what can be around a brick wall. And that's why I got a good resting bitch face.
Sorry, I have to apologise for trying not to giggle during that. Sorry?
Yeah, basically, Lyts'
time delay
is why she's got such good resting bitch face.
I have to apologise for giggling during the serious bit, mainly because Dan started cooking and this one's like ears started twitching, and then the full-on head came up, watching food, and I was really trying not to giggle because what you were saying was really serious. So that's what that was about.
Yeah. And that's why
it wasn't what you were saying.
Yeah, it's why it's quite like an observant person. Like the amount of people that I just like, I'm so quiet around, and then they just start talking to me, and then I can just relay various information and a bit of advice and support just because I've watched how their body language was, and it's just there. You don't have to say anything. You just be present, and once you observe somebody's characteristics, it's just so easy. Like you join a deload week, you're the worst person besides being on deep prep to be around because you got no gym. You're just, what do I do with myself? And it's just
Romana, you get it, girl.
just because it's
fucking hate deload. Tom, don't ever deload us ever again.
It's just easier to sit down.
Although I did have 5 days off the other week.
Yeah, it's just easier to sit down and just watch because we've been together 7 years. I know what you like. I've watched you playing football. I've watched you during
She was my coach once, and that was absolutely fun.
Top goal scorer, thank you very much, Winger. Peace out.
Yeah, I think it is just opening up to the right people and having a brick wall. To some people, it just happens.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. Have we got anything light-hearted we can wrap up with? Mainly because my battery's bad.
Oh,
England 1-2-1!
Yes, England in the Euros. The women.
Oh, yes.
Yes, the women are actually going to bring it home.
Yeah.
You're missing the football now, Germany.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, Dan, do you prefer slugs or snails?
Oh, yes.
Slugs or snails?
Yeah.
First snails.
Snails! Yeah, that's fair.
Good man.
Yeah.
You said snails.
No reason. It's just my go-to.
Snails are prettier.
Yeah, they are.
Sometimes their shells are pretty.
Well, have you ever seen? I forgot what it was, but there was it was either Disney or Pixar where the snails they'd have like graffiti on their shells and they do art on it.
Turbo.
Mate, is it Turbo?
Yeah, because they're like racing snails.
That's an amazing film.
Sounds about right. I'm suddenly aware that I've not watched enough
You need
Disney.
to watch Turbo. That's a fucking great film. Is that Disney or is that Pixar?
Yeah.
You wanted to watch a film later.
You haven't seen that film I told you about, Brave.
I have seen that.
With the ginger girl.
Oh, I haven't.
The ginger girl.
Romana.
Oh, well. Yes.
Great film.
Great film.
So,
There we go then.
Dan prefers snails. Watch Braven. Is it even called that?
I don't know. Brave.
I think it's Braveheart, isn't it?
No, it's just called Brave.
Is it?
Yeah,
No,
it's just called Brave.
Scottish.
Yeah, well, this one is Scottish as well. It is Scottish as well, but it's a cartoon one.
I think it is Brave, isn't it?
When you're at uni doing sports coaching, all you have time for is Disney. Apparently, it's not a degree, so
Yeah.
When you're at uni doing paramedic science, all you have time for is nothing.
Yeah, just nothing.
Getting drunk, actually. There was some getting drunk.
Fuck yeah.
What can you smell?
Those were the days.
Cool.
But yes, well, like,
Is there anything else we want to add? Or to wrap this
I
up?
think we've pretty much touched on everything. Just to reiterate what we said in the beginning of the podcast, if anyone or any person has been triggered by the discussion we've had today, or some of the subjects we have spoken about, then again, the open door policy to any of us individuals, me, Romana, or Debs, or the WPD page, just send us a message, because we all have access to that page. So one of us will see it. So you'll always get a response from us. But it's something that we all firmly believe needs to be talked about. Even though it's the subject of mental health is developing every day, and it's becoming more of an awareness, or the awareness around mental health, is much better. It's still something that needs to be spoken about, both men and women. In bodybuilding, in sports. Really? I think it's very important that we did this today, and just gave people a little bit of an insight as to why we train, not because we love it and it's a huge part of our life, but what got us into it and how it helped our mental health going forward.
Yeah, totally. And just a bit of a caveat. Hopefully we'll get another podcast out next week, but with Debs doing another show.
Oh, it's a bloody British next week, isn't it?
We could do an in-person one on Friday, but it would mean the drop would be later. It would be Saturday.
Oh my God,
we'll have discussion after.
Yeah,
man. Are you going to the British?
Is that?
Are you going to the British?
I am.
Yeah, we're doing Remies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sleepover with
girl
Ruby.
party.
Girl party. You can have pillow fights and shit.
Talk about boys.
Talk about boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Shall I end
Wrap this up?
The old recording? Oh, don't forget to subscribe. Something like that. You do it better than me.
Ring the bell.
Unscripted.
Okay. You've got so much